Hi everyone, I'm Matt Andrew. I'm one of the partners at Ekimetrics and the general manager of our London office. And for this next segment, I'm joined by Charlie Dodd, Director of Digital Marketing for Europe at Enterprise Holding Inc. So Charlie, great to have you with us. Thanks for joining.
Hi Matt, thank you for having me.
So Enterprise is a company and in an industry, in the automotive industry, that's seen really tremendous change over the last few years in both the industry trends and regulation, but also in terms of consumer behavior. Can you talk us through some of the main drivers that you're seeing?
Yeah, sure. It's an incredibly exciting industry to be in right now because of those changes. There are three big changes that we're seeing. One is the shift from internal combustion engine, ICE, to electric vehicles. The second one is around changing consumer expectations in terms of ownership models. So car sharing is fast becoming a thing, and that's starting to scale now. And the final one is a more recent phenomenon, which is mobility as a service, and what that is in a nutshell is really consumers' expectations changing in terms of the transport options and services that are available to enable them to get from A to B using, for example, multimodal transport. Predominantly driven by two big shifts. One is regulatory. So EVs, consumers don't particularly want to buy EVs or have to learn how to drive EVs, but regulations really are incentivizing customers to start looking at that, and that's where we can help. And then the other one, in terms of mobility as a service, that's really being driven by, as we said, consumer expectations and technology. I guess both are really driven by technology, but one is consumers adopting that technology versus the other one, which is government regulation driving that change.
Okay. And as you think about steering the business through that change, how do you prioritize focus so that you can make sure you're delivering the profitability and the short-term results now, but also setting yourself up to be a winning business in the long term as well?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. There really are a couple of time horizons, that we're looking at there, the long versus the short term. I think we're lucky at Enterprise in that it's a privately run company, and we're not looking at generating shareholder value. We're looking at generating a long-term going proposition for our consumers, and it really does help being family owned and a family that's really involved in the business and still hungry to go through that change and invest. The investments are driven by a moral compass that I think that we have. That's the best way of putting it. And there are three ends to that moral compass. One is profitability. What we do has to be profitable. The second one is around taking care of the communities within which we operate. So that means, for sure, environmental, making sure that we're taking care of the environment within which we're operating in, but also in that we're offering products and services which are additive to those communities. And the final one, so we have to listen to our consumers and adapt and evolve to better support their needs. Underpinning that, there are two North Star metrics. I know there should only be one North Star, but we have two. We're quite lucky. The first North Star metric that I'd point out is TSQI. That stands for the Total Service Quality Index. That's a measure end to end of how good a job we're doing at servicing our customers. So they get to grade us on when they got to know us, how was the marketing, how was the websites and web platforms, right the way through to how were they treated in branch and the quality of the service and the product we're offering in terms of the cars. Are they clean or do they work? And are they what the consumer was expecting? The second one is profitability and revenue. So we want to be growing as a business, expanding geographically and expanding the services that we offer our consumers. And so that's our second measure.
Okay. And so it's great when you have those dual metrics, right? One consumer focused, one financial focused. But how, when you're implementing projects and programs and you're thinking about business performance in the short term versus business performance in the long term, how do you bridge that? What's the role of data analytics and the language that you use to describe performance across the business to make sure that you're aligned in that journey that you're taking together?
I think we're lucky again in that the data that we have is really rich, both operationally and where I'm in marketing, and it's connected. And I think that having that data connected between operations and marketing is super important, both for some of the longer term initiatives, as well as some of the more agile areas that we're looking at adapting, evolving, and and continuously improving for our consumers. So a couple of examples. One is around car share or car club. That feels still quite new as a product, actually, but we've been doing it for close to 20 years, car club in the UK. And in terms of the data that we're using there, we have both the operational data, which tells us how consumers are using those cars, where the cars are, how far they're being driven, where they're being driven. We can also tell, if that car is having a problem, what the problem is, and so that's really connected, both in terms of connected to the consumer as well as connected to the car manufacturers. And then on the marketing side, we understand have we got the right product? Is it the right proposition that we're putting for consumers? And as the product evolves, we can evolve our marketing along with that, and we can see if consumers are taking up that product. And so we can see their TSQI revenue. Those North Star metrics are flowing through on that long-term, capital-intensive program of changing and adapting to consumer changes in expectations and behavior. Second one, we can also be a lot more agile. Something that we're testing at the moment is something fairly simple, which is a one-way car rental to an airport preferable and a good substitute for airport parking. That one isn't capital intensive. We've got the product. It's really around repackaging that and seeing if consumers want that product or not. And that's just buying a few keywords on AdWords. And again, we can still measure that through TSQI and through profitability.
Okay, so having that kind of steer of those short-term tests, the things that you can really stand up very quickly and establish initial demand, all the way through to those same metrics steering your long-term capital-intensive infrastructure projects and changing the fundamentals of the business, like connect and create a common currency across the whole business.
Yeah, completely. I think some companies call it growth hacking. We call it always be testing because we like our 3-letter acronyms, but essentially it's that. It's changing, adapting, being agile, and growing.
Great. No, lots of reflections to take away from that specific kind of use case in enterprise. But for those business leaders in industries where the change is still to come or is only just starting, how would you support them, or what piece of advice would you give that would help them navigate that coming change and steer successfully through that?
I think choosing the right North Star metrics is hugely important. Making sure that they're understood and that they can flow right the way through the organization and empower the workforce. That works for us, along with the moral compass. I think one without the other isn't going to lead to the right outcome. Everyone, right the way down to someone who's just started out in a branch, can impact those metrics, and I think that's quite powerful for the workforce and helps us offer a really good service for our consumers.
Great. Really appreciate your time today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So it's not quite the end of the show. We're nearly there, but next we've got Jean-Baptiste Bougie, our co-founder and CEO, alongside Quentin Michard, who's one of the other co-founders and our managing director, will be summing up and concluding. Following that, we'll have a live Q&A, so do prepare your questions and make sure you stay with us.